Ryan Phillips of The Big Lead, he put out a piece also on Monday talking about how the Padres need to change things. And if you don't know who Ryan Phillips is, again, Big Lead. So he's not Kevin Acee, he's not Dennis Lin, he's not AJ Cassavell, he's not Ken Rosenthal or Jeff Passan. So maybe you don't want to rely on this guy and you don't believe what he says or what you're taking this with a grain of salt, whatever. But he does have sources that were listed in this. So I don't believe that he's making this stuff up. And there has been some reporting out there, some things out there that I've seen already about some of this stuff, about AJ Preller and micromanaging and the communication and maybe guys not being prepared enough and all that. So I'm not saying that this is like the gospel, but I'm not saying that you should just disregard it for sure. So he puts this out, and this is what he says. In talking to people with knowledge of inner workings of the franchise over the past few weeks, an unflattering picture of the Padres emerged. Some of it involved the players the team had bet its future on, but most of the discussion centered on the team's front office. The first narrative relayed was that fitting a group of stars with big personalities together takes time, which, yes, I mean, that's a valid point. Takes time, but I think that's more of an excuse than like a valid reason for the Padres' struggles this season. Maybe you could point that beginning of the year because the guys were split up with the WBC and all that. But like when you're up at the plate, does chemistry really play a big part in it? Like you're just trying to get a hit off of the pitcher, you know? So I think that's more of an excuse. But what he also gets into here is AJ Preller. And several, according to Ryan Phillips, were quick to praise Preller's ability to scout and identify top talent and his knack for landing the players that he wants, which is true, obviously. There's 5 top 100 prospects, even after trading a bunch of their top guys, Gore, Abrams, Hassel, Wood, Susanna, trading them in the Soto deal. They have Salas, they have Jackson Merrill, they have Robbie Snelling, and I could go down the line. Like there's impressive guys in this farm system still. So you got to give that to AJ. But you also got to point out that the Padres have not developed a single all-star with AJ Preller, at least from what I remember, 0 all-stars that have been homegrown. You could point to Tatis, but like I'm talking about draft and fully develop in the farm system and they become an all-star before they get dealt somewhere, you know? That hasn't happened under AJ. So when it comes to investing in players, Phillips says, few teams have been as aggressive as the Padres, but the picture that emerged from multiple conversations is that the franchise fails to give those players the tools they need to succeed once they're on the roster, which that's a red flag. As one source put it, with how much they're spending on the field, it's incredible how cheap they are behind the scenes. I don't get how they don't see it. Yeah, that's definitely concerning. And that's something that I have seen out there before. I forget if it was on social media from someone that's really dialed, like, has talked to people inside the organization and knows what they're talking about, or if it was from a Kevin Acee or a Dennis Lin. But I did see that. And just like not preparing guys enough. Now, some fans would be like, well, you're Xander Bogaerts, you're Juan Soto, you're Manny Machado. Like, you're why do you need a bunch more help? You're getting paid $30 million a year or whatever you're making, right? And I get that point. But let's say Xander Bogaerts had strong advanced scouting and strong analytics and development and all that with the Boston Red Sox, and he doesn't have that same stuff with the Padres. And then you add that, oh, he got hurt this year, and then you add he's playing at Petco Park, not Fenway, and you add that up, and it's like, well, yeah, we should have expected him to not have as good of a season, right? And those are red flags. Like, if you're spending a bunch of money on the players, you better back that up with having the resources for them to also prepare well and be at their best going into matchups, going into games. Over and over, Phillips says here, voices lamented the Padres not investing enough into helping the major league roster succeed. The term archaic was thrown around when it comes to how San Diego is preparing players on a day in, day out basis. Analytics, advanced scouting, and player development were mentioned as areas the Padres aren't placing enough resources. Though one source was quick to point out, the franchise has improved on the pitching development side over the past few years due to some smart hires, which is true, obviously. Ruben Niebla, as the major league pitching coach, I don't know a ton about the minor league stuff, so I'm not going to act like I do. But yeah, Ruben Niebla, obviously, I think that's been a positive influence in this organization. He was praised, obviously, coming over. And when he was with Cleveland, we knew that he was a smart mind as well. So yeah, there's been some positive things, but the term archaic to be thrown around and like they're just not at the same level. And this, he didn't say this, but I'm assuming they're not at the same level as the Dodgers, as the Rays, as the Astros, teams like that in advanced scouting, in player development. That's a red flag. Again, you're spending all that money on the payroll. Why can't you spend some more money on some other things as well to put these players in the best position to succeed? Now, maybe this is me, or this is the article making just excuses for the players, like, oh, they're not prepared enough. Oh, the coaches haven't done a good enough job, or the development or the front office hasn't done a good enough job giving the players what they need. That's just an excuse for the players. And I don't want to make this seem like I'm excusing the players. Like, no, Manny, Bogarts, Tatis, they have to be better. Soto in August has to be better. Crony has to be better than what happened this year, for sure. There's a lot of guys on this team that have to be better. But I do think that this is valid to point out, and this is a problem in the Padres organization. It's not the biggest problem. Again, the players' performance is probably the bigger problem, but preparing is a big thing in baseball. And it's not like NFL where you have a week to prepare. No, like advanced scouting, I think, is important and knowing these guys. And I think the new schedule, it was mentioned in this as well. The new schedule has played a factor as well. Less time to prepare, and I shouldn't say less time, but less familiarity because you're not playing guys as much, you're playing new teams, but that I think that's more under the excuse thing as well because the Dodgers are doing that same thing. It's not like the Padres are the only team out there that is playing every team in baseball. No, the Braves are succeeding, the Dodgers are succeeding, the Orioles are succeeding, the Rays are succeeding for the most part, the Rangers have succeeded, right? There's a bunch of teams that have succeeded with this new schedule. So, yeah, the players have to be better, but I think it's definitely valid to throw out there that the preparation probably needs to be better as well. A former Padres employee claimed one major issue in the franchise forces the people it does have to wear too many hats, leading to reduced performance. He claimed that also led to communication issues, which tended to hamper continuity. So it's like, you know, you don't have again as much resources as maybe some other organizations do, and that needs to change. I think I remember Bob Melvin mentioning, like, the A's have way more I don't know if it was analytical staff or whatever, but more resources than the Padres do. So maybe it took him some time to get used to that when he first came over. I remember the quote from Juan Soto earlier this year where he was like, someone in the media asked him about the offense, and he was like, "I don't know. Ask those guys over there. Ask those guys down there. They know better than me." Said something to that effect, and I think he was pointing to like where the front office and the coaches meet. And it's like, okay, so are you not being prepared good enough? Like, what's going on here? And so maybe this sheds some light on that. One former scout says, if you don't give Juan Soto the tools he needs to be Juan Soto, you're getting a different player. So did the Nationals have much better player development and advanced scouting? I know Mike Rizzo is he's a scout at heart, but Preller's a scout at heart as well. So shouldn't he be big on having a good advanced scouting staff? You would think, right? If he's this old school kind of general manager and he likes feel and he likes scouting, like that's his background, shouldn't he have a good advanced scouting department? I would think, right? So yeah, some head scratching things here. Says, and this goes back to Preller micromanaging. No one in baseball works harder than Preller, but that might also be part of the problem. I have been someone that has praised how much AJ Preller has worked, and someone that night before the deadline he falls asleep on his couch. I think is what the story was last deadline, talking to a scout. Like, he works his butt off, but maybe that's part of the problem because he's micromanaging. That's why you see him on the phone all the time because he's having so much to do. He puts so much on his plate instead of hiring people he can trust to handle some smaller tasks. And they can be specialized in those areas, while Preller can be specialized in some things that he does well and have other guys cover his blind spots. New voices from outside the organization are rarely welcomed. What Ryan Phillips says here in this article, and we've heard that before. So yeah, Preller has some flaws, and this front office, there are definitely things I think that need to be fixed. If Peter Seiler is going to keep AJ Preller, he can say AJ is excellence and be like, well, they made it to the NLCS last year with this same GM, so I'm going to continue to believe in this guy. And okay, you can make that point. Like, there is a case to keep AJ, I guess, because what happened last year and Seidler believes in him, took him farther than any GM has been able to take them in my lifetime. Like, there's a case to keep AJ. I understand that. And you're so far in now, you want to blow up the front office when you're so far in. You know, there's a case to keep AJ. But if you keep AJ, Peter, I hope that you tell AJ, like, dude, some of this needs to change. Stop with the micromanaging. Hire people that you trust. I'll sit. This is what I would do if I was Peter Seiler. I will come and sit in your office for these interviews. And if I like this guy and you have some questions about it, maybe I'll say hire this guy because you need some guys that can cover your blind spots. That's part of the problem, I think, with AJ Preller is he hires a lot of guys that he likes and that agree with him. And there was someone, was it Dave Cameron from Fangraphs, who didn't agree with everything that Preller said, and he ends up leaving the organization. I don't think he got fired, but he ends up leaving the organization with no like next team in mind, like a plan to go right to a next team. Why is that? You know, so there's questions obviously about this front office. And when new voices are rarely welcomed, I think that's a problem. You know, it would be one thing if you're the Dodgers and you're having consistent regular season success, and it's like, okay, what they have is working for the regular season. So, okay, why would you welcome new voices? I mean, I would understand that. But when you've made one postseason appearance in what? It's going to be 8 years, 8 full seasons as the GM of this team. One postseason appearance in a full season, two in 9 years, if you count 2020. I think the best thing would be to welcome some new voices, some unbiased voices that are just looking at the organization and just want to say, give you their thoughts on what is best for the organization. Not a biased view, a view that's not going to get them fired. No, just a unbiased, this is what needs to improve. This is what sucks. This is what I think is good with the organization. Because I think there's some good things with the organization. Not everything sucks. There's some people that are going to that think that, oh, everything sucks. I'm not going to say that, but there's definitely some things that need to improve with AJ Preller, obviously at the helm here. And then Ryan Phillips, I think this was a good piece. And again, you don't have to take this as the gospel and believe everything in here, but this isn't the first time that I've heard some of these things and I've read some of these things. He says here, in talking to people inside the Padres organization, it's clear everyone knows things can't continue this way. I was repeatedly assured changes are coming, but will they be as dramatic as needed? So he was repeatedly assured changes are coming. What are those changes? Is it Preller? Doubt it. Is it Melvin? Maybe. More probable. Is it having outside voices come in? Is it getting better player development people, better analytical staff, or just more of them? Preparing the players better? What is it? What are those changes? I'm going to be curious to see what those changes are.